Hey, Brian White's filling in for Buck Lavasser. We're halfway through the deer season, and I haven't had any luck yet. But I did get the chance to speak with some young hunters who did at the 17th Annual Successful Hunters Night, sponsored by Buckmasters at Northwoods Wilderness Outfitters in Iron Mountain.
What do you mean? It's fun! What else would you think I would do? Play video games all day?
Also on tonight's show, we'll find out what it takes to turn this into this, with a visit to North Country Legends Taxidermy in Gladstone. That's all right here, right now, on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
November 18th marked the 17th year for Successful Hunter Night at Northwoods Wilderness Outfitters in Iron Mountain. It's an excellent event with lots of prizes and a great chance to see what kind of success hunters have had early in the season. But more importantly, it's a great promotion for collecting venison for families in need. And it's a great place for kids to tell their story and be hunters just like Mom, Dad, and Grandpa.
First, when he came up behind us from a swamp, and then he ran to the field, and there's 5 does in the field. Then he chased 2 does down the road, and then he came back into the field, chased 2 more does towards us. Then he standed there 130 yards away, and I shot him right in the neck, and he dropped right there. I'm gonna go shoot a 6 and up now.
This is our 17th year doing our buck night, or successful hunter night as we like to call it. We've had help the last 3 or 4 years from Buckmasters, which is a really big deal for us, help promote their program. Everybody really enjoys our, what we call buck night, and we do it a little different. Prizes are given away at a random drawing. It's not just the biggest deer, it's every successful hunter. And we enjoy that, and everybody else I think that comes enjoys that, because everybody has a chance to win the grand prize. We've done things in the past that are community minded, but this is by far the biggest. We started doing a buck night with Bob Garner from Michigan Outdoors, and Bob and I are pretty good friends. And we did the first one in Amasa, and we did the second one in Alpha, and then we did the third one here at Northwoods, and it stayed here ever since. And so this is actually our 17th year here at Northwoods, and we've done a total of 19 years of doing a buck night, as you would call it. And it's fun. It's fun watching the young kids. Sometimes we get some women in the first deer or whatever, and it's just a really good time. Tonight we gave away well over $1,000 in prizes. The grand prize was, of course, a hidden hunter blind that we make right here in town. Those are pretty nice little blinds. It's a $240 blind, so it's a nice first prize. We gave away a Hess knife. The Hess knife works in Gladstone. Don and his son have turned out to be pretty good friends of ours. Very, very nice guys. They build a great knife and very reasonable price. So we're glad to have those guys on as a sponsor. And then, of course, Buckmasters donated probably $500 in prizes alone, which is a big deal. Everybody left with a prize that brought a deer in. And it's just a good family event that we really look forward to doing every year. And I know the the people in the area do, because we get a lot of phone calls as to what night it's going to be, what time and whatnot. So yeah, we really enjoy it.
We'll be back for more buck night in a moment. Right now, we'll check in with Tim Garanchin at North Country Legends Taxidermy as he begins the process of turning a trophy deer into a trophy mount.
So the first step in the entire process is to finish the caping process. Essentially, what that means is most times when the animal comes in, the head is still in the animal, and what we have to do is remove that. Then the cape is fleshed, and what we do in that process is remove all the heavy meat and fat, enabling us to salt the skin. And the salt temporarily preserves it, and it's the first step in the tanning process. Here we've got our whitetail form. I've already gone through the process of prepping the form, and what that entails is roughing up the surface of the form, getting rid of all the mold release that's on there. So when we put our hide paste, we get a good adhesion between the form and the cape. Part of the process of prepping the form, as you can see, I've taken and put some wrinkles in here to give us a nice natural look. We've dremeled the groove in the tear duct, also dremeled out the nose and the lip slot. That's where our hide's going to be tucked into as we move through the process. Just making sure the front corners of our eyes are level. We look real good there, so we'll lock that down and I'll set the glass eyes. What I'm using to set the eyes is just a little self-hardening clay, and I use that throughout to kind of replicate the soft tissue areas, give it a nice soft fleshy look. What I'm doing is just making sure the pupils are level to the ground, and then I'm going to finish sculpting in the rest of our eye muscle detail with our clay here. Just kind of rough it in for now and then adjust it as necessary. It's important to really make sure the eyes are good. That's the soul of the mount per se, so you want to make sure you can look into the animal's eyes when it's on the wall and make it look like it's looking back at you. And we can change the expression of the whole look of the animal by altering how the clay is applied here. Make the deer look a little more alert, make it look a little bit more relaxed. And I'll add a little bit of clay here on the nostril wings just to soften those areas up a little bit. Give it a nice full and lifelike look. Add a little bit of clay over here to our wrinkles just to help that hide adhere when we get to that point down the road. This is just one of the little extra things, you know, that makes the deer look a little bit more lifelike. Just to add some wrinkles on the side. What I'm doing now is just applying some hide paste. Put that on pretty liberally for now. It'll help us get our cape into position, then we'll reapply it a little bit more down the road. What I'm doing now is just putting my ear liner adhesive in. It's a 2-part epoxy that I mix with a little powdered red felt, and once that dries, that shows through the inner ear skin and gives a nice natural color to it. And this is just a plastic ear liner. It holds the shape of the ear once the mount dries. So here we have our whitetail cape. This is a tanned cape. I send all my skins downstate to a tannery. They come back dehydrated once they're tanned, and I go through the rehydration process to bring them back so they're nice and supple again, as you can see. I've already done all the prep work on this one, meaning that the eye skin is thinned down, the nostril skin's thinned down, the lips have all been inverted and thinned down. Any bullet holes are sewed up. And I've also taken and in what's called the process of turning the ears. So I open up the inside of the ear, and that enables me to put this ear liner. I'll slide that right back in there, and this takes the place of the ear cartilage. So the ear, once it dries, will hold its shape. Let's get that pulled into position. Make sure our hair patterns line up the way they're supposed to. There's 3 things that make a huge difference in the quality of the mount. And the first thing is the eyes, the eye set. You really need to be able to make eye contact with the animal when it's on the wall. That's the soul of the mount, if you will. And then the next thing that's important is the nose, to make that look really natural. And the third thing is the ears. Okay, so what we have there is fairly good, and we'll touch it up as we go throughout the process as things move a little bit. We'll touch that up and keep that looking good, but we're off to a good start there.
We'll check back with Tim shortly. Now it's back to Northwoods Wilderness Outfitters.
This one I got yesterday on November 17th, and it came in all alone, and it was behind a tree, and my dad said don't shoot, but I couldn't wait, so I shot it right in the neck. I shot it with a 30-06, and then this one I shot on October 16th, and it's an 8-pointer, and it came in, and I shot it with the crossbow. It came in with a doe, and it went 40 yards. I got a buck tag for Wisconsin and a doe tag for Wisconsin left, and then I got 2 doe tags for Michigan left. So I hope to get out and feel those too.
We got there, got on a post about 7 o'clock. I actually walked out and put bait on the pile, walked back into my post, and I don't know, 20 minutes later, you come walking out. And my little guy Bryce was just nodded off at the time, and I couldn't wake him up for it because I didn't think we'd get the deer anyways, you know. So just then the deer kind of looked out to the side, peeked his head out. I said, I only got one shot, one chance. So I took a crack at it, and bang, there it was. It dropped right there on the spot, didn't go anywhere. You know, we set up our blinds so that they're comfortable, and put our heaters in there, and, you know, makes it, you know, fairly comfortable for the sit anyway. And that's what we do. We stay all day, and when something shows up, we try to take them home.
Don't miss the Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan. 4 days of great bluegrass, country, folk, blues, and rock and roll. Over 25 bands. Fun for the entire family. Carry-ins welcome. Kids 12 and under free. Buy your tickets and campsites and find out everything you need to know online at woodtickfestival.com. That's woodtickfestival.com. The Woodtick Music Festival in Hermansville, Michigan.
What we're going to do now is dress the form, meaning we'll just put the cape over there. Try not to goof up our clay work too bad that we already did. I'm just kind of roughly getting things in position. Checking hair patterns to see that everything's kind of lining up somewhat for starters. At this point, I'll start to refine our eyes a little bit more, add a little bit more clay in here, refine our tear duct, and then I'll just start roughing in this eye a little bit, make sure everything's gonna line up fairly well before I set the antlers. I'm just pushing a couple pins in here to hold, you know, using the reference, the front corner of the eye, the top of the tear duct. If I can, using those reference points on the skin, I can use my pins to keep everything lined up, and it'll fall into place a little easier. Just kind of roughly get things pinned in place here. And we'll just put a pin in the back corner. That's our reference point back there. You get those hair patterns laying around the nostril like they should, like they would in a live animal. Get rid of a little extra lip skin. We don't need a lot to tuck up in there. Too much actually makes it a little bit harder to deal with, since you want the lip slot to hold that skin tight so it doesn't work its way out as it dries. Now we're getting the antlers set on here. I got it kind of temporarily tacked on, and what I'm going to do is check to make sure the height of the antlers is good. And the rule of thumb is if you can draw a line from the back corner of the nostril through the front corner of the eye, that should generally, more often than not, line up pretty well with the bottom of the antler burr, and this one looks like we're right on. Get that, make sure everything kind of falls back together again the way it should. The closer you can replicate the anatomy of the actual live deer, the hide just kind of falls right back into place right where it should. I'm putting some bond over the back of this skull cap, trying to replicate a little bit of the anatomy here. And I'll come back over once this sets and shape it some more, and then build in with some clay over to smooth it out and rebuild any other muscles that are missing. What I'm doing now is just finishing the rebuilding of the soft tissue that was removed when the skull plate was cleaned. Just kind of get it roughed in, and we'll do the final shaping once we have the skin in place. Now I'm going to rebuild the muscles at the base of the ear. The way the muscles are built depends on the position of the ear. The muscle structure changes for a deer that has both its ears forward alert versus one who has them maybe both back or listening in different positions. Again, I'll just get it kind of roughed in the general shape, and then I'll shape it through the final shaping through the hide. Just going to put some more paste over our new muscles here, and then I'll kind of start forming the ear in place. The little ball on the end of the ear butt fits into the socket that I made in the form. In this particular mount, the ear wants to be back, so I'm going to rotate that ball and socket. Anything that's taken out of the animal's got to be put back in. Any muscles that are removed when things are cleaned off has to all be put back in. In this particular mount, we want one ear forward and one ear back slightly. This back one will rotate. As the deer rotates its ears behind it, it also turns a little bit down towards the ground. So make sure we replicate that. So I'm going to bring this ear a little bit farther forward. Give the illusion that it's listening to something. The next thing I want to do is stitch up the back of the deer. I use what's called a short incision on this. It's only about a 6-inch long incision. So I'll get that sewn up, and then I'll keep refining and grooming and working towards our finished deer. Sewing is finished. I'm just going to cut the excess threads and groom this out, make sure everything looks okay. I'll put a little wrinkle back in here to show the skin how it would fold. Gives a little more natural look, just all the little things, the little details that add up to a nicer finished product. Just trying to get all the hair patterns down here lined up properly. There's a lot of different cowlicks and opposing hair patterns that if you don't get the skin laid in here correctly, they look pretty wild. I'm just going to finish tucking our lip skin into the lip slot here. Do the top lip first, come back and do the bottom. Make sure we got all the hair patterns lined up right. Pretty distinct hair pattern around the back corner of the mouth here, so I want to make sure I get the hair lined up. If it's not lined up, it doesn't look right. Okay, and what I'm doing is just putting some plastic mesh in the indentations on the form to hold the detail until the glue sets up. And I'm just arranging, pressing some of our hide into those wrinkles I had on the form earlier. Make it look as though it would when the deer was turning out in the wild. A lot of grooming involved. Just keep going over everything, making sure the hair is laying the way it should. So I'm just going to add a little bit more plastic mesh here, delineate some muscle detail. That stays for a couple days till the glue sets up, and then I'll remove all of that. Even though the animal has his ear back, there's usually some memory here in the hair because it's used to always being folded, so I like to put a little roll there to indicate that. The last step I do on the ears is a process called carding them. And what this does is it just keeps the edge of the ear nice and crisp, kind of trains that hair to dry the way I want it to. I'm just going to go ahead and staple the back of this hide, and then we'll cut off the excess.
Talked with Jim Markell of Buckmasters to find out more about their mission.
Our local chapter has been around, this is our 15th year, I believe. We've got 200 people in our membership, and what our mission statement is that, of course, we want to fill up our local food pantries with deer donations and food goods for the local community. So a place like this, an avenue like this, a night like this is great for us because we get to see all the deer brought out. We did get a couple deer donated tonight. You know, we do need a lot of deer. We have a lot of families that we like to feed, a lot of local pantries that are in desperate need of our services, and we're honored to be in the community. Our supporters, our sponsors, our donors are the people that kind of fund us and drive us to where we're at. So if there's anybody out there that wants to donate deer in our local area, we'd be happy to come and get the deer. All they need to do is call us up. They can call up Randy here at Northwoods, and we'll get out and pick up the deer from them. And especially this time of the year, the food pantries really love it when we come in with hundreds and thousands of pounds of ground venison for the local patrons.
About ready to set this one aside, and we'll give them some eyelids tomorrow after the clay sets up a little bit. And then I'm gonna go on the wall. Depending on time of year, they usually take 2.5 to 4 weeks to dry before I do the finishing work. And as it dries, I'll keep checking on it to make sure things are looking the way they're supposed to, and if any adjustments are necessary, I'll make them at that time. This whitetail's, he's dry, he's been on the wall for a few weeks now. The next step in the process is to do the finish work on it, and that involves any epoxy work around the eye, the nose pad. I go back through and one by one put on back on the nose pad nodules. Finish work inside the nose, in the bottom lip, inside the ears, and then all that is sealed and painted. And on the stand now I got a finished one, previously finished. You can see the finish work around the eyes is done. Any of the leather area that needed to be retoned was toned, and a little bit of gloss on the lower eyelid. And on the nose pad, all the nodules are rebuilt one at a time. Yeah, the nostril interior is glossed. The antlers, I just clean all the blood off them and put an antler conditioner on them, kind of brings back the natural color to them, cleans them up nice.
I was hunting yesterday in Alpha by the grade where my grandpa's blind was. I shot my first deer right there. And when I was shooting that deer, I had a 243, and the deer was like right on the side of the feeder, looking at me. Every time my grandpa was trying to help me, I would say, "Shh, the deer is looking at you." And he would just go like, just looking at the deer and praying to stop, and he would be like breathing kind of heavily, or something like that. And that's where I shot my first deer. I'm all done now.
This little guy was so interesting, I just had to ask him if hunting was fun.
What do you mean? It's fun. What else would you think I would do? Play video games all day? Maybe on the weekends, but not all day. Well, better than cleaning my room, especially when I get carried away.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Monday night, right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
And I have to tell you, this little gentleman here shot a 7mm mag at a deer. Promote deer donations and feeding the hungry. So if anybody's got a deer that they don't want, if they got a family like mine who has, I've got 5 kids who all love to hunt, and I know that I don't have a freezer that's big enough to stock full if they each pull the trigger. So if you do get a deer, think about us and we'll come and get it from you. Thank you. Please take some cookies.